In 1947, the world went to war once again. This time, the victors of the last Great War faced each other in the next. America would come out of this war as the leading and only superpower on the planet. With Eurasia decimated from the last two world wars, only one land remained untouched from the bombs: North America. In the years following the war, new minerals and technologies would be discovered across the world that enabled great things. But with only the United States and its allies capable of utilizing these resources, this created an ultimate hegemony over the world. And in 1964, the United Terran States was formed out of these nations, under America's leadership, to begin the reconstruction and finally a new age for humanity, a brighter age, away from the wars best left forgotten. Hello and welcome to, well, the new series. As the intro suggested, here we are, and we're going to start off with getting our industry, our research good to go. As you may be able to tell, and as the intro said, this is me talking over a pre-recorded gameplay I did a few hours earlier. And this will allow me to kind of explain my thought process, and will just be a new way of doing it, which I felt could be possible with the recent RP1 series where I did something similar. Either way, we're spreading out our research here, and we're getting ahead here with a pretty good kind of spread. I'm pretty happy with it overall, to be honest. We're also going to sort out our first infantry forces. Now, as again the intro suggested, this is a bit of an RP series. This is kind of what I would have imagined happened potentially, or a very dramatized version of what might have happened if the United States and the Allies went to war with the Soviet Union in 1947 before the USSR got the bomb. And this meant that the US was able to get out of the war, win the war after some years, and remained unscathed. Europe, not so much. Here we are setting up our exploration ship, so just setting everything up. Again, it's a TN start. We start with a lot of stuff, and so there's a lot to manage initially. And then set up our construction queue. We all start with a lot of construction capacity. This is double what a normal start starts with in terms of resources on the planet. Now, of course, the more you construct, the more minerals you're going to actually use. Another benefit of doing this kind of talk over concept is that the videos are going to be a lot shorter. This video is going to probably be about 30 minutes long, and that's going to be the average time for each video themselves. I also go about setting up colonies on these different worlds in Sol. As you can see here, actually, I may not just say it, just skipped over. Mercury has a ruined outpost on it, which is a pretty big deal. We're going to use 5-day increments, and with 3 MPRs, it's actually pretty slow, though you won't be able to tell thanks to speed up. We start out with establishing our first colony on Luna using some of our colony ships, and we continue our research efforts. What I realized was, oh, Mercury has an outpost on it, an ancient outpost. We need to go and deal with that immediately. So I begin the design and construction of a xenoarchaeological equipment, as well as construction equipment, and get those guys researching. Now, it's going to take quite a bit of time because we are quite low research. And in this episode, we're going to be going from 1978 to 1982-ish, though January of 1982. So we continue to go along. Our exploration ships are beginning their survey of the outer system. We start with the entirety of Sol geosurveys. There's no need for that, so we're just focusing on getting our gravitational survey. And we also are going to start construction of new Aegean-class exploration vessels. Now, the Aegean-class has with it the capability to fire probes, as well as buoys, which are pretty valuable, and also capable of exploring itself using a jump drive. It's decently slow, but it does its job pretty well with about 100 billion kilometers in range. You might see that on screen now. I might put up kind of the stats for the ship. And so we're just waiting here. Our training up of our battalions is going pretty well. I generally speaking want to get as many infantry out as possible, as quickly as possible, because we're going to need to be garrisoning all of our future colonies. There's a lot to do here. I set up our academies, for example, there. And I may be doing stuff off screen that you may not be able to tell, and there's a lot of stuff happening quite quickly. So don't really worry too much about that, as a lot of this is just tedious. You know, this is how the game is played. Automated assignments was not on, and we find our first system, Lalanid 21185, and I'm actually pretty impressed by the system. There's definitely potential here, though there aren't any easily colonizable worlds. So I have to keep, obviously, that in mind. I also realize, oh no, all of my commanders are not set up correctly. So I have to get to work making sure they are correctly assigned and set up. Checking my research and making sure my labs are actually being assigned because we are building new labs. And we're continuing to gravitationally survey the survey locations in Sol. So yeah, we settle in here with a pretty good pace. I have a look at Lalanid again. I'm kind of interested in some of the mineral concentrations and geosurvey points. We have the UTS Pacific Ocean, who is in command and who will be surveying the system, the first system that humanity will be able to reach using the new faster than light jump drives that have been developed. You may be wondering, how do we have so much stuff in the lore? Well, essentially, after 1964, the world began reconstruction under the leadership of America, and thanks to these new magical resources, new magical elements, they were able to complete this reconstruction extremely quickly, and then they realized, all these resources are now elsewhere. And so, as America does, we built up a military to go and secure them because of rogue states and other problems. And we also began aims to exploit them massively. As you can see here, we're going to go set up some fuel harvesters. We're building infrastructure to ensure that we can actually colonize these systems because we don't start with much infrastructure. Our tugs are taking over fuel harvesters as Saturn. And that's really the aim of why we're expanding outwards. Why should humanity go outwards? Well, there's lots of resources out there that we need to make sure that our society can thrive. And that is why so many ships have been built before we have really started exploring elsewhere. And that gives kind of the basic lore explanation of why we're here. Obviously, I'll fill it out more as we go on. So now in November of 1978, our tug has completed orders and we now have set up all of our fuel harvesters here. They're mining about 5.6 million litres of fuel. So we're going to get our fuel transport set up ready to move that fuel back to Earth. And we're going to begin to expand that fuel harvesting capability over the course of the video. There's something that I find very important is not to put all my fuel harvesting in one basket. And so when we explore these new systems that we'll be coming across, like Lalanid, I'm going to be focusing on making sure that we have gas giants there that we can harvest fuel in system, transport fuel in system, and ensure that we're self-sufficient without having have massive fuel trains moving fuel all over the place. So we do have long-haul fuel transports ready for that. We set up the Danube to go and explore another jump point, and I'm also sorting out our ground forces as a new division is basically trained up and ready to go. We discovered the system of 61 Cygni. Now, 61 Cygni has a very nice set of parameters within the system. Very, very nice indeed. And it has within it a colony cost 2.0 world, which I immediately decide, okay, that's going to be a colony. And there's a lot of gas giants and other resources there, so it's got pretty lucky, to be honest, with the two systems generated. The other thing as well is I kind of play around here with missile launches because this is the first time I really used these kind of two-stage buoy deployments, and I thought, oh, that'd be fun. Why don't we do that? Unfortunately, it doesn't work really how I expected it to work, and so we do have some issues which I have to resolve. But it's nothing too big, and I eventually figure out that the deployment how I wanted it to be deployed didn't really work out. I needed to use waypoints. I didn't realize that until a little bit later, but we fixed it. And also the geosurvey double deployable buoys just didn't work as intended, at least not without a lot more micromanagement than I might otherwise want. We're skipping ahead a little bit, and we are here. We're just having a look. I'm deploying these buoys because, again, I want to test to see if it will work as I intended it to. And as you can see, it does actually do the job that I wanted it to do. However, at this point, we launched them, and the annoying thing is they're going to stay there forever now because buoys do not disappear. Because they have no engine, they will last forever. Either way, when we're starting in our first Trans-Newtonian, when you're starting in the Trans-Newtonian start, the first thing that you generally want to be thinking about is, okay, where are my first colony locations? How am I going to exploit Sol? And how am I going to make sure that all my transport's going to where I need it to go? You don't really want to embark, and what you haven't seen, embark on massive construction efforts. I haven't done that. So we're really just setting all the stones in place for the expansion of the state, right? So we're going to stabilize jump points. We're going to begin transporting fuel from our fuel harvesters. We're going to start moving colony ships and freighters to these new colonies, and then we're going to start in placing ground forces on those colonies and really start to build up stuff slowly. You've got to keep in mind that if we explore more and more, one, there's a bigger chance of the NPRs finding us, and there's also a bigger chance of spoilers finding us, and that could be a real problem at this early in game when, relatively speaking, we don't have that big of a military. Our best offensive weapon are the UTS Triton, UTS Acropolis, and UTS Columbia. You can see the design on screen now. These ships carry 16 F-8A fighters. They also carry 3 E1 or E3 space early warning crafts that are capable of detecting incoming vessels, mobile sensors essentially. And they have 4 missile pods on each of the F-8As, and that means that we have a total firepower of about 100, about 200-ish, 196-ish missiles that we can fire in a single salvo using all 3 carriers, the Triton, Acropolis, and Columbia. You'll also notice that many of our ships are named. I've spent a lot of time actually naming a lot of these ships. And speaking of missiles, we're going to be building up a big stockpile, as you can see on screen. But yeah, I spent a lot of time making sure that all the ships had names, even the commercial ships. The commercial ships are designated TMS, or Terran Merchant Ship, and our military ships are or have a prefix of UTS, or United Terran Ship. And that gives you kind of a distinction of what is a military ship and what isn't. Even our fuel harvesters have names like phenol and lignite and steam coal. Those are all hydrocarbons, which I found quite fun to name your fuel harvesters after, considering you're supposedly mining a hydrocarbon. Production of more long-range buoys, and we're just going back with the industry. There's a lot to do, especially when you set up all your cycle orders and all your things. As you can see, though, we have actually set up our fuel transport. We've actually got to have 4 ships transport that fuel back and forth on the short-haul flights between Saturn. I'm having a look at the minerals because we haven't finished surveying. I'm looking around, kind of being like, okay, where are we going to put, where are we going to put mines, where are we going to put fuel harvesting, all that stuff. I'm actually building fuel harvesters right now because I know we're going to be needing them, and we've started colonization of Luna, Mercury, and Mars. And our civilian industry has started to expand. Our civilian ship lines started to expand to work with them. So with the fact that I found the Geosyria buoys not really working, I decided to use the just one stage. So that means that we will just deploy them on place. I'm like, well, we're not going to be in danger to do so. So it's not too much of an issue for us, is it? And again, we're just continuing to increment here forward. Now, the main thing that I'm currently waiting on is to stabilize both of the jump points so that we can begin to send through colonists. And if we can send through colonists, we'll be in a pretty good place, because then we can actually start to get presence in these systems. Now, you may be asking, why are you being so fast about this? The reason I'm being so fast is because there's NPRs, because I know they're being fast about it, and I need to make sure that I get as many of these systems claimed, defended, and positioned as needed. Once we start reaching towards like the 10 systems, 20 systems area, I'm going to start setting up patrols. I'm going to start setting up quick response forces and whatnot. And that's why I'm also building some additional frigates. I'm not going full bore in terms of building. And we're just kind of focusing on laying out the foundations right now, because we don't have the resources to go on a massive spending spree, despite how many mines we have and how many construction factories. If we used all of our construction factories and all of our shipyards, we would be out of minerals on Earth in a very quick amount of time. Now, lucky for us, a place like Mercury, to the left there, has a lot of resources: titanium, uranium, renderite. Mars also has resources: Saturn and Neptune have Saurium, and some other minor bodies like Ceres have some good amount of resources as well. Here's one of those frigate squadrons. We have the UTS Anham, Kochi, and Trafalgar of the Bunker Hill class, and those are named after battles. And they are very useful longer range ships. You may see that on the screen now, capable of protecting our shipping lanes. Now I'm testing out the Geo Survey buoys, which I have 20 of on here. Though I don't think this works out because I wanted to figure out, okay, maybe the 2-stage works. Turns out it doesn't work. And so I'm going to have to go back to the drawing board with that kind of concept, at least for now, because for the second stage to actually separate from the payload, you need a target, and you can either have a waypoint as a target or a ship, and planets are not technically classified as targets. So sadly, can't do it. Now, there may be a point where we can put a waypoint above a planet, but that feels very janky to do. So, it's a bit all over the place in that regard. So we finished up stabilizing both ends of the Lalonid and 61 Cygni jump points. And so now we will open the way in 1980 for the beginnings of ship transport, freight transport, colonialization of the nearby system, and 61 Cygni is going to be the start of that for us. So I'm having a look here at our fuel harvesters because we are having some issues. I'm like, okay, yep, I'm harvesting fuel correctly. I also check a look at our colonies. So far, everything's looking good. I want to know what the infrastructure was looking like. And we're just monitoring the current situation. Everything is going exactly how I want it to go. We complete research into the XSV, so that's going to be for Mercury. And I also start our colonization here of 61 Cygni. So I create a colony. I also look at Lalonid and I'm like, okay, which colony do I want for that? Well, we'll figure it out later. And I decide 61 Cygni, we're going to name it New Eden. New Eden colony. And then we're going to rename the planet to New Eden itself. And with our colony ships, which can both transport infrastructure and colonists, we're going to use this to set up our initial colonies. These are really useful ships because, while yes, they are not great at either of the tasks, they can do both, and this means that we can just say, okay, go here, colonize that area, put people on there. That's, it's the classic manifest destiny. Go and plant a flag on that rock with 50,000 people and claim that in the name of the United Terran Nations. And if aliens rock up, we will show them the door with our army. We also finish up here, as I said, our Xenoarchaeological Battalion. Our Xenoarchaeological Battalion is going to be imperative for our Mercury work, because Mercury obviously has very important stuff on it. It has the outpost. It's not going to have the most amount of ancient stuff on it, but it might have some minerals or fuel or research labs even. There's definitely some big benefit there. We also discover some additional jump points, and we build the Lake Chamberlain and Lake Erie, or not Lake Chamberlain, Lake Chaplin and Lake Erie. These are named after lakes and rivers, our exploration ships. And the Lake Chaplin and Lake Erie are set up, and are also now sorted out with the correct ordnance as well. So I send them to Lalonid, and I order them to deploy geosurvey buoys across all major bodies that have not been surveyed yet. And theoretically, this should work as, well, you expect. The buoy gets deployed, and the buoy begins geologically surveying these bodies. They do about 10 points per day, so you would think that'd be pretty quick. But I'm thinking maybe something to do with the settings of cast screw that up. Either way, we're going to be deploying a lot of those buoys across that system. We're now in April 11th of 1980, and we're having a look here as we begin to have our first colonists arrive on New Eden Colony here on the 20th of April 1980. 50,000 people now live under a different star in the system of 61 Cygni. I'm also kind of thinking here at this point, okay, how am I going to defend these people, right? Because I'm going to need to have ships that will be able to patrol back and forth. We're going to have interlopers attacking us in various areas. And we're going to need to set up deep space tracking stations to really keep apprised. And here we go. I'm sending a infantry division, the first infantry division, to a New Eden colony to secure it. So that's 100,000 tons of ground forces being sent to secure the colony. And that may seem like a lot, but it's really not when you think about it. That's about 1/5 of our strength being sent to another system, the ground forces, and we'll be able to build these divisions relatively quickly. And that's what we will do as well, of course. I'm also building more ordnance because we need to keep that stockpile, because if we do go to a war, we're going to need to be able to rearm and reuse missiles a lot, because we're going to be going through quite a few of them. And as we can see here, our exploration ship is deploying our buoys across the system, which is very nice to see. We'll also finish up some additional research labs, and we get those on the way. And here come our troop haulers and also our freighters, bringing ourselves deep space tracking stations that will give us early warning of any incoming unknown contacts. And as you can see here, they now have a pretty decent thermal and EM signature with 4 deep space tracking stations. We're going to put 8 on the colony, and we built quite a few of them earlier. Just inspecting our ground forces there, and we assign a governor to the colony. Our wealth situation is also looking really good at 80,000 wealth. Our industry is really booming at the moment, to be honest, and our troop haulers have arrived back at Earth. We now have 100,000 people on New Eden, and I'm like, okay, now it's time to colonize Lalanid 21185. We might need to rename that. So I select Lalanid 1 for the colonization efforts because of the minerals on it, as well as the relatively low colony cost. It is a lot higher than Cygni, that's for sure, but they will do our job. We can't colonize it like Cygni because of that high colony cost, so I decided to just send mass infrastructure. I name it Horatio, planet Horatio, and I name the colony Horatio military base, because this is where we're going to put a military base. And the reason I'm going to do that is that this colony is not really going to be able to habitate a lot of people or keep a lot of people alive, but it will be able to sustain them present. That will be for mining fuel in the system that we will be needing. I'm also checking here again, distances between jump points and the systems in the systems, because that's going to really affect how we're going to do our defense. So there's a lot to do in that regard, because there's going to be a big headache if we don't sort that out. As we saw in some of the previous series you guys may have watched, raiders are not fun if you do not prepare correctly. We discovered a new jump point. And we're going to discover a lot of different jump points as we continue to explore outwards in these two systems. These two systems are really going to take up the majority of our time, at least initially, because of just how rich in terms of resources and bodies that they are. First, civilian mining complex comes up. We start shipping those resources to Earth, and also we start Mercury starting to mining. So we send over 40 mines to Mercury. We have like 2,000 mines or something ridiculous on the planet, Earth, and so we ship over 40 mines for the 2 million available workers that are stationed on the planet. We task Freighter Fleet 3 under the command of Maynard Malthusson, who is under command of that freighter group, to go and move those resources. And the UTS Oda is currently in charge of the exploration of Wolf 359. Lake Erie and the UTS Pacific Ocean are in charge of Lalanid, and we'll continue to increment forward here as we go into 1981. Geological battalions are coming up, and we're just crossing it. Freighter Fleet 2 confirms they've completed. That means we've got 44 mines on the colony. And we're then going to be moving a mass driver over to begin shipping those resources to Earth as we do need them. And we'll be building up Mercury a lot in the coming episodes, in the coming videos, because of its immense natural wealth. That's so close to us. Very good accessibility, uranium, vendorite, and tritanium. All things that we're going to need for missiles, ground forces, and just general construction of any ship with the uranium stockpiled. We also start building refueling stations and cargo shuttle stations in my anticipation that we will be needing them for future, for our military bases, our further outposts. And I start building more freighters and corvettes because I realize I'm going to need more ships if I'm going to protect these new colonies and corvettes are going to be built for the close-in protection of new colonies and new systems. So definitely something to think about. Fleet also completes its orders, which means it's moved over the 8 deep space tracking stations. This gives New Eden Colony 2,000 strength in terms of tracking, which gives them actually a really big thermal EM signature against the size 100 signature, which is going to be really nice for when we need to have quick response forces and we need to know exactly where the enemies are. And I considered even moving some to 61 Cygni A5, some of the other planets, but I decided against this. Here I am having a look at this and be like, how the hell is this actually working? Are the GeoSurvey buoys actually working? And I still don't know. I don't think they are. If you know, let me know. I just launched ready ordnance at the planet itself. Supposedly, it should be in orbit. It should start geosurveying it, but who knows at this point? That's for sure. We finish up training our xenoarchaeological battalions. With those now trained up, this will allow us to send them over to Mercury, and they will begin their work. Now, it's going to take quite a bit of time. Each of these xenoarchaeological battalions has about 16 xenoarchaeological vehicles, and that gives it a 16% chance. 16% chances every year. So we will eventually get it. It's just going to take some time. And so we load up our troop haulers and get them moving over the necessary forces. The Order's having a great time in Wolf 359. It's nearly complete, and they'll be going through another jump point soon enough. Overall, though, our current mining situation is going good. We're having a look at our research, and I look at my construction queue, and I'm like, okay, everything is progressing as needed. And maintenance supplies and fuel are also good. Though, again, I'm very cognizant of the fact that if we have an issue, it could be a problem in terms of maintenance supplies and fuel. Now, here, we surveyed a survey location, and we found 2 jump points next to each other. I was like, what the actual hell is that? And so what I do is I order the UTS Red Sea to refuel, replace their ordnance with the new buoys, and begin heading towards jump point 4. These jump points are right next to each other, which I've never really seen before. We could actually have one probably station or force defend both on this side. And we also order another infantry division to be constructed immediately. As we begin to expand outwards, I'm like, okay, each of these colonies taking a division of forces. We're going to need a lot of forces if we're going to have a lot of colonies. And I have a look at 61 Cygni A1, and I decide, oh, it's not named correctly. I want to name the correctly. And we also I have a skim through and like, oh my god, there's actually quite a lot of resources here. We can actually have shipped this all the way back to Earth pretty easily, as I do have a look. Here comes the Red Sea. It's heading over to JP4 to explore. And we find Lumen 16. Lumen 16 has no habitable planets, but it has 2 super Jovians. And so I decided to deploy GeoSurvey buoys and have a look. Once I know that there are no habitable planets in the system, I generally just let the Explorer do its job. If there were a habitable planet, I would deploy one of the EH and TH, EM and TH buoys to go and have a look. If that buoy would then get destroyed at the habitable planet, I would know, okay, there's aliens here, we need to leave, and designate this as off limits, at least for now, unless we can gather additional information somehow, which unfortunately we can't do. Or we wouldn't be able to do, generally speaking. And the Oda actually does complete its job and begins heading out. While heading out, I mean, it's going to go through jump point 1. It finds another empty system as its previous system it was in, Psi Ceti. And you have a look there at the galactic map, which is pretty sparse for now anyway. We've only explored 5 systems, and 2 of them are completely empty. The other 3 are actually pretty jam-packed, though. There's a lot of resources there. And so we order the 2nd Infantry Division to head to Horatio Military Base and begin garrisoning it as needed. And we also begin the same, moving over deep space tracking stations to begin the establishment of a permanent colony on Horatio. And I also begin moving refueling stations, because we're going to be needing those refueling stations if we're going to extend our range outwards. And also, if we're going to set up proper patrols, we're going to have fuel transports deliver fuel regularly, as well as maintenance transports deliver maintenance supplies regularly. There's a lot of logistics that goes into running an empire, running colonies, and running this kind of infrastructure that's really, really important. And again, we're nearly here on nearly January 1982, nearly ready to wrap it up. And Yoda heading back to go get stuff sorted out. And we have the two Aberdeen class freighters finishing up, which will be sorely needed. We set them up as freighter group 3 or freighter fleet 5, and get them assigned a job soonish. We get them moving over infrastructure. I believe, or no, mines to Mercury, as Mercury has grown by another like 2 million population. And we finish up training our 3rd infantry division, new infantry division. And as we can see here, Ratio and New Eden are growing slowly but surely. New jump points get searched, and we actually find that Lalnid is a pretty big nexus to a lot of different places, a lot of jump points in the system. We have 2 exploration ships currently in system, and even had a bit of an error there, but we're fine. And so far, everything is looking pretty damn good. And that is where we're going to end the episode out, with 5 corvettes finishing up. That's where we're going to end it. If you did enjoy the content, if you do want to see more content like this, bear with the new format. You may not like it initially, but please do stick around. I think it's going to be pretty good, and it's going to help in a lot of ways. I'll see you guys later. Please like, comment, subscribe. Would this help me out? And goodbye.